receiving side, he is hearer. He hears on some occasions, but at the side of transmitting the hadith, he found an opportunity to share his reports with collector narrators. So he became distributor narrator. Many of the generation after the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, you can find many of them here, distributor narrator. And we said here narrator in terms of obtaining and distributor narrator in terms of conveying the message. Yes, let me read the definition again. A narrator who found an opportunity to share the reports which he on some occasions obtained, he is here, on some occasions obtained formerly. He found an opportunity to share the reports with collector narrators, so he is distributor, rather than those around him. Of course, he shares the narrations with those around him also, but if he at the same time could narrate the hadith to the collector narrators, so he becomes after that moment distributor narrator. Distributor narrator doesn't mean the one who didn't share any knowledge with those around him, absolutely. Now here is distributor narrator. At the source side there are sharer narrators, and at the interlocutor side there are collector narrators. And now collector sharer narrator. A narrator who on some occasions shares the reports which he intentionally collected formerly. He intentionally collected the hadith, the narrations, but he couldn't find the opportunity to narrate them to those like himself. He maybe died early, so he only could share his reports with those around him rather than the collector narrators. He couldn't gain the attention of the collector narrators, so he only shared his knowledge. He may share his knowledge with those around him. He is collector, sharer, narrator. Collector, sharer, narrator. At the source side, there are distributors, narrators, and at the interlocutor side, there are hearer, narrators. And now, the last one, collector, distributor, narrator, is the most professional one. He is a narrator who found an opportunity to share the reports which he intentionally collected formerly with collector narrators rather than those around him. This is the one at the source side. He takes the hadith from the distributor narrators. He is going after the hadith. He is professional at receiving the hadith. And at the side of at interlocutor side, he could gain the attention of the collector narrators. He may live sufficiently till the next generation found him enough elder to receive the hadith from him. They couldn't find elder than him to hear the hadith, because they are going after the most elder in order to be closer to the source of the hadith. So here is the collector, distributor, narrator. And now let's talk about determining the model of a narrator. How we can determine the model of a narrator. Here it is possible to determine the dominant aspect of a narrator. We will look at the dominant side, because every distributor could share his hadith with those around him. But we will look at the dominant aspect of a narrator. dominant aspect of a narrator in the receiving side over his number of witnessing, hearing, and collecting. Likewise, it's possible to determine the dominant aspect of a narrator in the transmitting side over his number of sharing and distributing. We will look at the receiving side and count the witnessing, the hearing, and collecting of the narrator, which we are working on. And we will look at the interlocutor side and we will count the sharing, his sharing and distributing. And here is an example. Let's assume that the narrator R has 4 narrations. At the first narration, let's assume that he hears from his father and narrates to his son. Here at the first side, he is hearing. He hears from his father. There is a relation between them. He is not a student of Hadith. He is not the one who creates his occasion to reach to the Hadith. He once one day heard from his father. And the same thing happened between him and his son. He shared his knowledge one day to his son. So at the first side, there is one hearing. At the interlocutor side, there is one sharing. And at the second narration, let's assume that our narrator R hears from his father, like the first narration. So at the source side, there is one hearing. And at the interlocutor side, there is one sharing and one distributing. He shares the hadith with his son, and he one day receives a collector narrator, a student comes to him in order to hear that hadith from him. So, like my grandfather, here is I am, and here is that student. So my grandfather was sharing to me, but he was distributing to that student. This student is the one who intentionally looks for the reports of the event. And at the third narration, our narrator R hears from his father that he has a hearing, but he goes after a scholar of hadith in order to hear the same hadith from him. So he is collecting here, he's going after that hadith, he's creating his occasions to reach to that knowledge that he heard one day from his father. So here at the source side, he has one collecting and one hearing, and at the interlocutor side, he shares that report with his grandson, like me and my grandfather, and at the same time, there is 3 students comes to him and asks about that report. So he distributes the report to them. So at the interlocutor side, he has 3 distributing, 1 sharing. And now the 4th narration, our narrator R goes to a teacher of hadith, sheikh of hadith, goes to a scholar of hadith in order to hear from him, and he hears from him a narration. So he is collecting here, our narrator R, and he distributes this narration to 5 students. 5 students came to him and asked him about that narration, listens to him. So they are collector narrators, and our narrator R here is distributor narrator. At the source side, there is a collecting, and at the interlocutor side, there is 5 distributing. They are counting this. Now, let's look at the receiving side totally. Total number of hearing, if you count it, you will see it's 3. Total number of collecting, it's 2. Total number of receiving, it's 5. 2 and 3, it's 5. So our narrator R is 3/5, namely 60% hearer, and 2/5, namely 40% collector. So his dominant side is hearer, because 60% hearer. And at the transmitting side, total number of sharing is 3, total number of distributing is 9, and total number of transmitting is 12. 3 and 9 is 12. So our narrator R is 3/12, namely 25% is sharer, and 9/12, namely 75% distributor. So the dominant aspect of the narrator R at the transmitting side is distributing. So is 75% distributing. So the result is, it appears that at the receiving side of the narrator R, hearing is dominant, 60%, and at the transmitting side, distributing is dominant, 75%. Hence, it can be said that R shows a hearer-distributor-narrator model. Yes, this was the result about our example, and let me talk about the early period of Hadith. Here's the source, the Prophet ﷺ, and most of the companions was witness, sharer, narrator. This is the common form of narration in that period. The Prophet ﷺ as source, and most of the companions was witness, sharer. They couldn't find the collective narrators. I'm speaking about most of them. And at the early period, the Prophet ﷺ source, and there was a few witness, distributor, narrators among the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So this form of narration, rare form of narration, it wasn't common form of narration in that period. You can find a few of the companions who is witness, distributor. But at the next period of at the next period, the witness narrators, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and here is the generations after them, hearer, distributor, narrator, this increased narration format. This form of narration was increasing at the next period because of the collector narrators, and at the next period, here is the witness, the companions of ﷺ, but hearer, sharer, narrator, this was decreased narration format. This was decreasing, and this was increasing because of the collecting of hadith, because of rihla. There were some people began to look for the hadith. This is approximately after the 1st century. At the beginning of the 2nd century, there were some collector narrators, and it began a rihla. Many of them after that began to look for the hadith, because the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ was after the companions of ﷺ, after their death, it was difficult to find a hadith. When the society felt that needy, they have sent their sons in order to look for the hadith. So the collector narrators began after the 1st century, at the beginning of the 2nd century. So this is increased narration format, here distributor, but this one here this was decreased narration format, here sharer, but here distributor narrators from witness narrators, this was increasing after the 1st century. Yes. This is the end of the presentation 2. It was about the models of narrators, of the theory of probability of narrations.